I think so many people make their optimization inside their Facebook ads account much more complicated than it needs to be. And so from doing this for nearly a decade now, we've created a 5-step process that we go through. So it doesn't matter what the account is, what the niche is, we go through these 5 steps to determine what the advertising bottleneck is, and then what needs to happen in order to get back on track, as well as amplify the results of the account. I want to talk about in this episode, I want to talk about something that we do day in and day out. And this is this is what I do inside our coaching program nonstop every single week. And that is optimizing Facebook ads. And the good news is that this is a skill that can be acquired by anybody, but it takes time. It takes reps. I don't believe that marketers are born, marketers are built. Great marketers don't just happen. You don't just become a great copywriter. You don't just become a great designer or a great entrepreneur or a great leader or a great optimizer of your Facebook ads account overnight. It takes repetition and it takes practice. And so from doing this for nearly 10 years, so the agency side of the Ecommerce Alley that works with brands has been doing this for almost 10 years. And so to do this for 10 years and work with thousands of different clients, you have to have a good framework to follow, or else it'll just feel like you hop in your ads manager and you're just kind of like deer in the headlights, where you don't know what to do next. And so to remove that anxiety, that fatigue of just like paralysis by analysis, because there's so much to analyze, you just become paralyzed with like fear, paralyzed with, well, I don't want to turn off the wrong thing or increase the budget on the wrong thing. And so I want to walk you through the checklist, the five steps that we go through in every account to fix and find the bottlenecks that just aren't working. It's easy to see what's doing well. If you log in there and you see something that's, at a 3.5 ROAS and your target is a 2.8 and your break even is a 2 return on ad spend, it's easy to spot those 3 point somethings and just be like, okay, great. How do we amplify this? But the harder question is to say, ooh, crap's hitting the fan. Things aren't working. What do I need to do? And with everything, before I dive into this, with everything in marketing, we believe that marketing is a mathematical equation, not an emotional decision. And I believe too often we get wrapped up into the emotion of it, which then pulls away from us trusting the data, trusting the math. And when our gut gets involved, we lose almost every time. And so as we go through this process though, I'm going to be talking about 2 different aspects of that. You see, you have the data driven side, but you also have to have intuition as far as deciding which changes to make. Yes, there is the data and the math component, but when you actually decide what to do, you have to go with your intuition of what you believe will make the best improvement. And the more you do this over and over and over again, the more you get your reps in following this process, the faster you're going to be able to do it, and the better your intuition will become. Because as you identify trends and say, hey, every time this happens, I make these adjustments and it improves it like this, then you're going to be able to make those decisions much faster the next time around. And so let's go ahead and dive into these 5 steps. Let's walk through them. And in here, I'm going to show you, hey, what is the next metric to look at? What's the benchmark for that metric that we're looking for? And then if it is outside of that, what is the fix to make improving that metric, so I just keep climbing through that. And so let's dive in. First, I want to make sure that I am using correct data. And this is before the steps. This is like step 0, all right? So make sure that you are using the right data, that whatever you're looking at is the true source of analysis. And what I mean by that is since iOS 14, tracking has been wildly inaccurate on Facebook. Now it has gotten a lot better. I will say it's gotten a lot better in the past months. It has gotten much better, but it is not all there. It is not all there. So if you're going to use Facebook Ads Manager to make decisions, make sure that you are making decisions based on that. If you're going to use a tool like Google Analytics to do what's called manual attribution and looking based on UTM parameters, which might, if that sounds like mumbo jumbo, then you're probably not doing that. But if you're going to use Google Analytics, then use Google Analytics. But whatever you're doing, stick to that single platform. My recommendation, if you're spending at least $5,000 to maybe $10,000 a month though, is to invest in an attribution tool that will give you great clarity in tracking. The two that I recommend are HYROS, HYROS, and Triple Whale. Those are the two attribution tools that will give you great transparency and very accurate data as far as what is working and what is not. Because sometimes Facebook's dashboard will say, hey, this ad or this campaign has like a 4.3 ROAS, and then you look in Triple Whale or HYROS that have the accurate data and it's like a 1.2. And if you went to scale that, you'd be scaling the wrong thing and it would be actually bleeding you. It would be hurting you. And so the first thing, step zero, make sure that whatever you're analyzing with, that is the source of data that you're using. And if you want to get the most accurate, I recommend HYROS or Triple Whale. Now, once we are in that tool and we're ready to make an optimization, we're sitting down to make decisions, the first metric we always look at is return on ad spend. Now, the reason this is the most important is when we're looking at purchase campaigns, and by the way, this whole optimization process I'm going to walk you through, this is for purchase campaigns. I can't get into every single type of campaign and how we optimize them. This is for purchase campaigns, the 5 steps we walk through for purchase campaigns. So the first metric, step number 1, look at the return on ad spend. Is this above your break-even return on ad spend, or is it below? That's the question that I want you to answer. And if you don't know what your break-even return on ad spend is, here is the easy, fast, quick and dirty way to figure it out. Take your average order value and so if your average order value is $60 of blended products, I want you to find out the percentage profit margin on that average order value. So if your average order value, I will use simple math here. So let's say the average order value is $50 and your COGS are 40% of that, so $20, and then you have another $5 between processing fees, et cetera, and then that brings your cost of goods and all your stuff up to 50%. It means if you have 50% profit margin, what you're going to do is you're going to take 1 divided by profit margin percentage. So if my profit margin is 50%, I'm going to take 1 divided by 0.5, and that gives me a 2. What that means is my return on ad spend must be 2 or higher to be profitable. If it's a 2 on the dot, it means that I'm acquiring customers without like being in the negative. It means that I am at a break even, I'm acquiring customers for free, and for me, I'm happy with that as long as you have something to maybe sell on the back end and they might come by again. If you sell a product that's like one-off and they will never come back, then obviously you want to have profit margin built into that. And ideally, you always want to have profit built in. But the number we're looking at is break even. So if your profit margins are 50%, then your break even will be 2 return on ad spend. So knowing that, what we need to do is say, okay, what is at or above my break even and what is below it? If it's above it, then we're going to let it ride, or we're going to look to scale it in some capacity, whether that's increasing budgets, duplicating ad sets, etc. I'm not going to get into scaling. I'm going to talk through the marketing bottleneck stuff you do when things aren't working, like where is the bottleneck happening? So if it is lower than break even, then we have to move on. So first metric, look at the ROAS. Anything below break even ROAS, we need to go back and we need to go to step number 2, which is to look at the CPMs. This is cost per 1,000 impressions. This is essentially the cost to advertise, and a target range for e-commerce is going to be $10 to $22. That is the most common an average range of CPMs in the e-commerce niche, excluding holiday time. So if it's a holiday time, we do expect them to be higher. So Q4 is usually kind of rises up to December, and then it just does a nosedive January 1st. But the benchmark target CPM range is $10 to $22. Maybe you're below $10. We have accounts that are running $5, $6, $7, $8 CPMs. It just depends on the industry. A lot of like pet-based, like dog, pet-based industries, we notice a lot of those are like $5, $6, $7, $8 CPMs, a lot lower. But the normal range is $10 to $22. Now, if you're in that range, move on. If you are substantially outside that range and you're higher than that, then there are some fixes you'll be able to do to lower your CPMs. So let's say your CPMs, your cost per 1,000 impressions, are $50. Let's say they're $50. If it's $50 to reach 1,000 people, you're gonna have a very expensive cost per acquisition, and it makes sense that your return on ad spend is below break even. And so there are 4 things we're going to look at if the CPMs are really high. Number 1, these are what the fixes are gonna be, and these are some things you have to consider. Number 1, what is the length of the account? That's the first question, because if you have a newer account and you're just beginning, we notice that sometimes CPMs on purchase campaigns are much higher when you're newer. So look at the length of account. But if you've been around for a while, that's probably not it. The second thing we're gonna look at is what is the frequency? Monitor the frequency. If the frequency is over 2 in the last 30 days, then we have an issue. There's something, you might have too small of an audience, because the frequency means how many times people see that ad. And if you're going to cold traffic and they're seeing it 4 times in the last 30 days, then you're probably in too small of an audience and you have to adjust your audience. So what's the frequency? The third thing we'll look at is what is the audience that you're going after. If it is a smaller audience, we usually see higher CPMs. If it's a broader audience, we usually see cheaper CPMs. Meaning if you're targeting people who are ages 30 to 32 who have an interest in underwater basket weaving, you probably have a really small audience, and that audience size is gonna hurt you. Whereas if you went and you targeted people on a very, very broad, and maybe you put no interests in your Facebook ads for targeting, and it's just targeting the whole United States, well, you have a very broad audience, and usually we do see CPMs be a little cheaper. But the biggest fix that we often see is that your copy and your creatives just aren't resonating. Facebook penalizes you when your ads do not resonate with their customer base or their user base. And so if the quality and the engagement and the conversion rankings of your ads are not good, then Facebook is going to penalize you and your CPMs are going to be higher. They're just saying, hey, your ads don't resonate with people, so you're going to pay more, because if you want to pay us to run ads, we'll let you, but we're going to charge you more for that. I will say the most common fix is your ads and creative, and you'll hear this a lot. Ads and creative have, or your copy and creative. Your copy and creative are probably the biggest factor in your success on Facebook. You know, we've seen really wide open audiences do insanely well with super great ads, because you can take a great ad and crush it in really wide, broad, more general audiences. But you can't take a bad ad and go to really targeted audiences and do well. It might do well for a little bit, but it's going to fatigue. So most common, the fix is to improve your copy and the creatives of your ads so that they resonate better. Now, I just did a podcast on this called, how to cut your CPMs in half using a $5 a day campaign. I do recommend you go listen to that episode. I believe it's episode 64 of the Ecommerce Alley podcast. Don't quote me on that. Go to the description of this and we'll have a link to it. But go there. We've seen CPMs cut in half overnight. So if you have high CPMs, I do recommend implementing the $5 a day campaign that I teach in there. So this is the second step. So first, what's the ROAS? If it's below break even, move on to the next step. Look at the CPMs. Are we between $10 and $22? If they're lower, that's okay. So I guess you could go up 0 to 22. If they're over $22, then we probably have an issue and there's something we need to do. Then the third thing let's say you're in the $10 to $22 range. All right, you pass go, collect $200, move on to step number 3. Step number 3 is we are going to look at the unique outbound click-through rate of the ads in the campaigns. So this is a metric that we look at inside of our campaigns to measure how many people are clicking off the ad outbound to our website. And the reason we look at this after CPMs is to answer one thing. And that is, are my ads enticing enough to the audiences that I'm running for people to click? Because if they're not, you're gonna get a low click-through rate. It's gonna make your cost per click really high and your return on ad spend will be much lower. And on top of that, Facebook is probably gonna charge you more for your CPMs than you would be paying because they're just not that relevant. And so if your CPMs are in the target range of 10 to 22, we move into step 3 and we say, what's the unique outbound click-through rate? The target, if you're in the target range for CPMs, the target click-through rate is 2% or higher. 2% is the minimum we want it to be. If you're under 2% click-through rate, and you're in that $10 to $22 range, then your ads probably need improved. We're usually looking for higher though, like 3% to 4% click-through rate. Those are ones that will really, really crush it. We call these super ads. When you find a super ad, it just clicks and the cost per click that you get is really low. The click-through rate is really, really high. And so the target we're looking at is 2% or higher. 2% is usually the floor, but we often want 3% or higher. And if it is below 2%, then there are a few fixes. Number one, improve your copy and creatives. I just said that in CPMs. Guess what? That works on the click-through rate as well. Improve your copy and creatives. Or you need to look at your offer. What is the entry point offer of those ads? If the offer isn't that good, then you might be losing clicks there. The third thing we're gonna look at is, do we have relevant audiences? Maybe you're trying what's called open or broad targeting, where you don't choose any interest. This is really starting to get more popular now as AI and machine learning is improving. We're seeing that you can sometimes just launch ads into Facebook with zero interest and it actually finds the right people and it works. Maybe you're trying that and your click-through rate is really low. It could just be maybe broad and open doesn't work for you, or maybe it doesn't work yet. So find some more relevant audiences. And the final one, this is more of like a technical one that I wanted to put in here because I do see this, and you might need to delete or reply to negative comments. Sometimes on the ads, you'll get just these trolls that get in there and they just troll for days, and then other trolls hop on the bandwagon. And if that starts to happen, we do see that very clearly impact performance of ads. So make sure that you're either deleting if it's just profanity or it's not relevant, or replying to negative comments. For us, we reply to negative comments. I have a great time replying to negative comments with memes and GIFs, and I have a great time with it. And it actually builds rapport with everyone else that's seeing it. And so make sure that you're deleting or replying to those. So that is the third thing. So first we look at ROAS. Is that below? Yes or no? The second thing we look at is our CPMs. Are they in the $10 to $22 range? If so, move on. Step number three, we're going to look at unique outbound click-through rate. Are we at least 2% or higher? If so, move on. And that brings us to step number four. We are going to look at the cost per unique outbound click-through rate. Now, every single person listening here is going to have a different amount that you can pay for a unique outbound click before you start losing money. There is a calculation for this, and if you really want to know the calculation, what that is, I'm going to run through the calculation fast, and you could pause it and run these on your own if you want, but then I'm going to give you some recommended ranges. So the actual calculation to determine your target unique outbound click-through rate is to take your break-even cost per purchase times your store conversion rate from Facebook traffic. So if $35 was your break-even cost per purchase or cost per acquisition that you could pay, times, let's say your conversion rate of traffic from Facebook is 3%, so 35 times 0.03, it'll give you $1, that's $1.05 target unique outbound link click-through rate. So, $5 is the break-even times your store conversion rate of Facebook traffic. That's how you find it, by the way, and that's going to give you a break-even cost per unique outbound link click, just like break-even ROAS. Now, if that's super nerdy, I'm going to give you some just general ranges we're looking at. The target we're trying to be in is like $1 to $1.50. That's the most common range. Sometimes we'll get sub $1. It depends on the niche. But we've just learned that if you're selling high ticket, lower ticket item, like a high ticket item where your AOV is like $600, $700, $800, $1,000, $3,000, we still want to be in the $1 to $1.50 range because your conversion rate will just be lower because you're selling higher ticket. And so the general range we're looking at, like for cost per click that we try to be in, is that $1 to $1.50 range. If it's under $1, hey, that's okay. The dollar range is like a good rule of thumb. We always try to be at $1 with the campaigns that we're running. All right, so let's say your campaigns though are running $3 or $4, which I see these in accounts all the time. So if your CPMs are in the right range and your click-through rates are in the right range, but your cost per clicks are really, really high, then it's usually going to be two things. Number one, you guessed it, your copy and your creatives. This impacts so much. I can't say this enough. Your copy and your creatives are probably the culprit of most of the results that you're not getting. So copy and creatives is number one. And the second thing is going to be more relevant audiences, because the right people equals the right clicks. And so if your cost per clicks are really, really high, It's likely because of your copy. Usually it's the copy and creatives. The second thing is probably going to be the audiences. Now, here's the interesting thing that you'll notice. What you're going to notice is when you're looking at unique outbound click-through rate and cost per unique outbound click, you're going to typically see a trend that both of those are out of KPI at the exact same time. Usually what happens is you're going to see your target click-through rate of 2% or higher, you're going to see like a 1.2%, and then you're going to notice your cost per unique outbound link click is going to be well above $1 to $1.50. Usually, those are both kind of determined in the same step. Very rarely will your click-through rate be like 3-4% and your cost per unique outbound link click be like $3. Very rarely does that happen if your CPMs are all in check. So typically, you're going to see steps 3 and 4 of the unique outbound click-through rate and the cost per click, they're both going to usually be out of whack at the same time. But occasionally we do have click-through rates good, but cost per click suck. And so in that case, we go back and we look at those. Then the final thing, let's say that all of this is good. This happens a lot, actually. We were just in an account yesterday. They had 10 orders out of 3,500 unique outbound link clicks. Run the math on that, and you're talking like 0.3% conversion rate. Very, very low. And so this is where we like to look at two things. Well, the metric we're going to look at is the purchase conversion rate from Facebook ads. So if all your things are in target and you're like, Josh, I have the CPMs, I have the click-through rates, the ROAS is obviously off, but my CPMs are good, my click-through rates are good, my cost per click is good. Well, what's probably the issue is the purchase conversion rate. You might be driving a ton of traffic, sub $1 traffic to your website, but you're not getting the purchases, right? So this is where the final fifth step is we have to pull back another layer and dive deeper and say, okay, what's happening on the conversion side? And usually there are a few things here, but first what I want to do is I want to give you the benchmarks we're going to do. And here's how you calculate, your actual purchase conversion rate from Facebook. You're going to take the number of orders and purchases you purchases that you received from Facebook. So let's say I received 49 purchases from Facebook, and I had 1,578 unique outbound link clicks. We're going to take purchases divided by unique outbound link clicks, and this is going to give me a purchase conversion rate of Facebook traffic. I'm not taking overall because overall can be skewed with organic traffic. And so I'm looking at only Facebook. So if I take number of purchases divided by unique outbound link clicks, so if I take 49 divided by 1,578 link clicks, I get a 3.1% conversion rate. For those of you that figure that out in your head, hey, I just validated it for you. So 3.1% conversion rate. So that's how you're gonna do it. You're gonna take purchases divided by unique outbound link clicks. All right, so the target we're usually looking for in Facebook is 2% or higher. So 2 to 5% is usually the target range we often see. If you're higher than that, you're absolutely on fire. You're crushing it. And so obviously the higher the better, but 2% is the floor we want to see of Facebook traffic, meaning we want 1 in 50 people to actually convert. And so when you're looking at this, if you're like, Josh, I'm getting the clicks, I have 65-cent clicks and I drove 1,000 people and one person bought, then you probably have a conversion problem. And the steps we're gonna go through is this. First, I want you to walk through your website step by step. Like this is one of the common mistakes that we see is everything looks good, people get to your website, but then there's something that's not working or the messaging isn't clear or there's a technical error. Oh man, I have seen this so many times when someone says, hey, I'm getting all these clicks, nobody's buying. And we go to the product page that they're driving people to, and I go to add to the cart, and it's not adding it to the cart. Or add to the cart, and there's no cart drawer pop out that kind of pops on my screen to let me know that it added it to the cart. And so I keep clicking add to cart, but it doesn't show me that it was added to the cart. So people get confused and they back out. We want to make sure that your cart drawer pops out when someone adds to cart. I have seen that so many times. And then guess what? We just add that, we make sure that it pops out and suddenly conversion goes up. So you need to walk through your website step by step as a potential customer to say, hey, what is stopping me? What are the questions that I have? Do I know what the free shipping threshold is? Are there reviews and proof? Do I know it's being sold? Do the product photography or photos, do those do it justice? Are my objections being answered? Do I know what the shipping time is? Do I know how exchanges or returns work? Do I have the specifications? all of those things you need to walk step by step to better understand. That's the first thing we're going to do if we have conversion issues. Often it is a website issue. The next thing we're going to look at is we're going to look at the product offering. What's the entry point of that traffic? Maybe that's not resonating. Maybe that's not working and you're driving them there and then people get there and they're just bouncing. And this could do with the price, like there is, people just get sticker shock and they do bounce off the page right away. It could be with that, but is what I'm offering, if people are bouncing, what can I do to improve the offering? Do maybe I tie this into some kind of an offer where, hey, it's a subscription box, and instead of just pushing them to the subscription box, we say, hey, 50% off your first order. Maybe we need to look at the offering of it. The next thing is going to be the ads. This is very, very common, is we want to look and say, hey, how do we improve our ads from a standpoint of getting more qualified traffic with greater intent? So there's a little a scale that I want you to think about. So you have intent and you have intrigue. And on one end of the spectrum, you have intent, and the other side you have intrigue. And what I want you to do is think, where on that spectrum do your ads lie? Because you might be getting a high volume of clicks, low CPMs, good click-through rate, etc., because your ads have a photo of a puppy dog on them, and the headline says, if you click this ad, we will donate $1 to $1 to the dog shelter local to you. Obviously, you're going to get a lot of clicks. You're going to have all of this intrigue, but you're not going to have the intent that you actually have. And so that's obviously an extreme example I want to give, but you need to consider intent versus intrigue. Where are you on that spectrum? And a lot of times we have ads and we try to be really clever and witty and use photos of like good looking models or people that get a lot of clicks, but people don't really know in the photo what's being sold. This is really common, that if you have a lifestyle photo with, let's say you have a watch as the product and you have a good looking model or someone in the lifestyle photo, they might not know that you're selling the watch because it is not clear in the ad. So they click on the ad, they see, oh, they're selling watches, I'm not interested in watches, and then they bounce. And so look at what your messaging is and your creative is on the ad front. Consider intent versus intrigue. How do I make sure that there is an intent to buy by the time they click on the ad? And that might mean you need to add more ad copy. You need to clarify, hey, this is an X dollar product. You might need to add some benefits. You have to make sure that when they're clicking, they know that they are clicking to buy what you are offering. So improving the ads is the other one. And then the final little bonus here I'll give as far as improving your website and improving the messaging of the website is to use tools like Hotjar, Lucky Orange, Microsoft Clarity, which is free. They're heat mapping tools that will allow you to analyze where are people scrolling, where are people clicking, and what's the behavior that is happening so that I can make tweaks on my website to boost the actual conversion. Whew. All right, so this was like a very tactical walkthrough. I'm trying to do more of these style podcasts where we walk through like, this is exactly how we optimize. And if I go into account, this is the 5-step process we go through to identify bottlenecks very, very quickly. First, and just to recap these 5 steps, first is the ROAS at, above, or below break even. If it is below, move on. The second step, we look at the CPMs. Are we between $10 and $22 or are we above that? If we are above that, then we have to move, then we have to make some tweaks to get our CPMs down. And again, I recommend the CPM Crusher training that I did on how to lower your CPMs. Go listen to that podcast. If they are within the target range, we move on. Step number 3, we look at the unique outbound click-through rate. The target we want to be at is 2% or higher. If we're lower than that, then there are some fixes to be done. If we are above 2%, then move to the next step. And we have to look at cost per unique outbound click. And if the target we're looking at there is $1 to $1.50, that's pretty normal. You could do some good math and determine your own target unique outbound link click-through rate. But we typically are looking at $1 to $1.50. That's a pretty common range we want to be in. If you're at that, or even if you're below that, move on to the final step. And if you're not getting the conversion, so if you're getting all the clicks and all this good stuff, then you're probably struggling on a conversion level. And it's either happening on your ads because you have a lot of intrigue and not a whole lot of intent, or it is happening on the website level where people are getting there, there's a technical error, something that's not working properly, or some messaging and clarification and improvement needs done on the website to get those people to convert better. Because the target conversion rate we're going to be looking at is 2 to 5% is the range we want to be in of conversion of Facebook traffic. You, my friend, have been listening to the E-Commerce Alley podcast produced by Dylan Counts. If you want more information like this, if you want to hear about these processes, if you want to learn about how to grow your e-commerce business outside of even Facebook ads and even in things like increasing your AOV and in leveraging email marketing, then join the E-Commerce Alley Facebook group. Go to alleypodcast.com/group where we do live streams every single week. We dive into a ton of stuff and that will also get you on our email list, which we send out. We do tons of events and workshops and lots of really good stuff that if you're an e-commerce leader, business owner looking to grow, it's an absolute must.